made it to another episode of the Pipe Dream Podcast. This is a show that reveals the real and raw of tradesmen's stories. We get the truth from those who support the people who do the work. We also take a deep dive with resilience experts and those who do the heavy lifting supporting the labor force. Listen for today's tale from the trench.
This is Nick Gemmel, the Awakened Tradesman, and the topic of today's episode is the Canadian Grizzly, a discussion with Russell Peel. Sit back and relax and listen to today's tale from the trench. Hey, brother.
Hey, how you doing, Nick?
Good, man. Good. You're looking good with that gym. That's your gym in the back, is it not?
Yeah. With this whole pandemic thing setting off in the middle of March there, I work in a gym, but I decided there's no way I'm not going to be able to train. I didn't know how long it was going to take. Luckily, I bit the bullet and set up the whole home gym. So it's been a nice little distraction, to say the least.
Yeah, no doubt. Just all to yourself. I love it.
Yeah, I even got the wife actually training 2 times a day. So she's killing it. So
oh man,
first for her.
She's a firecracker. Oh yeah. No, I love it. And man, for those that don't know who you are, if you could give a little introduction to yourself.
All right, yeah. So Russell Peel, my main job has been for the last 7 years as a personal trainer in Calgary here, and I've also branched off, or actually originally it was through mixed martial arts. But I'll go into that a little later when we start talking about Japan. But since returning from Japan in 2013, I decided to pursue a career in personal training. And that took off quite well. So I've been, trying my hardest to be one of the best trainers in Canada. So that's how I'd explain myself right now. I've been coaching quite a bit as well with mixed martial arts and powerlifting. So I've had a numerous amount of students and clients that have done well this last year, actually 2019. My protege, Eric, in MMA, you know him, you train with him. You've actually sparred with him and been punched by him. He got a Canadian national title for amateur MMA in light heavyweight and another belt through another organization. So he's been doing well. And then, a bunch of my other clients that were just average guys in the gym started getting them lifting. And they, came in first in worlds this year. So the oldest guy, Freddie, he's 71. So that's I've branched off as a coach, powerlifter myself, former fighter from Japan. And I'm also pursuing a career as a pro trainer with CanFit Pro. So I certify people on becoming personal trainers.
Yeah, which there is a lot of them right now. And it is needed. People want to do that. And especially with this new world, there's a lot of people, right? And that's a whole nother discussion, but there's a lot of people that don't know how to train and are trainers. And to have someone like yourself behind it makes me feel better as like a consumer that that there's going to be a quality control, right? Like that's
I can see, as you know, you go on Instagram and every girl that has a nice pair of tights is a trainer now, and a guy that has a 6-pack can teach you how to do it, but it's not that easy, right? So if I can actually help them start their process of being a professional trainer, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And man, and like when I first met you, it was a few years ago now. It was almost 5 years ago, I guess 2015, I guess we met. Yeah. And that was an interesting story, I guess, in Maui, hey, of all places.
Yeah, the kind of worlds collided. 2 guys from Alberta at this condo for mostly seniors. We were there with our families at the time. And their kind of idea of vacation is, happy hour at 5, dinner at 6, and bed by 9, and go to the beach all day long. kind of the retired life. And after a few days of that, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So found a gym, and then I invited you to come train with me, and then we were there every day for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was gnarly. I enjoyed it. And I still remember it was one of the nights, I don't know how far into it was, when we finished our training, and then I was finishing off a little bit of I think triceps or doing something lame, and then all I heard was this whap in the back, and it was you hitting the heavy bag and with low kicks, and the whole gym stopped to listen and peek their head around this corner. A bunch of big Samoans, man, just looking at what is this? And it's a dude from Canada that's making all this ruckus.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, they had a nice little kind of MMA section in that gym. Really nice gym.
Yep, the Gym Maui. The Gym Maui.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was super sweet, and man, so that was a good trip. But getting back to your professional days, I guess to get to that point, I'd like to, because it's quite the transition from, you were in Japan. Was that where you started training, or were you training before you headed to Japan?
Well, so I grew up roughly just outside of Calgary in a smaller town. And then, I lived in Calgary for a good chunk of time. But as a young man, I left to Japan when I was 22 years old. So finished a degree in criminal justice. I did do some jobs in that field, realized it wasn't for me at the time. I was 22. And then one of my best friends, Hayden, that I met out in Vancouver area in university, he said, I'm going to Japan to teach English. I thought, I want to do that. That's pretty cool. So I applied online. They did interviews in Calgary for this particular company. And then that was that. I was hired and was heading out to, I kind of applied in the summer, I believe. And then by November, I was on a plane to Japan in a foreign world, and all the way to a city called Sapporo, which is in the North Island of Hokkaido. So it's like I kind of consider it like a mini Canada, because the temperature there is roughly the same. And then the snow during the winter is actually way more. So
dude, I don't know. I was there, and it was like the humidity was, I was sweating in the shower when I was in Sapporo. So
yeah. Were you there in the summer?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because in the summer it's more like it's tropical, and it's not too hot. It gets to about 30. Yeah. Whereas not, near Tokyo, you're up towards 40 and 90% humidity. Definitely more humidity than Canada. But I mean, that means that there's more snow. Like I remember in the winter, there'd be piles of snow because it doesn't really thaw either. So they'd pile up snow about 2 meters high. You can barely look around the corner when you're driving to see where you're going to turn. So yeah, it was crazy times. So I moved out there. And then I got into really liking the Japanese culture. So I was like, this is pretty cool. But I was still kind of I just graduated party mode. I was living in Sapporo, lots of nightlife there. So finally I decided I got to get out of here, move to a smaller city, kind of in the middle of the island, and really cut my teeth as a teacher there. That was my main job, was teaching English. So I got into teaching English there, and I was still going out and stuff. And the reason how I got into martial arts formally, I had done a little bit back in Calgary, but I actually got into a scuffle with a bunch of kind of lower level Japanese mafia guys. They kind of it's a long story, but it ended up me going to try to talk to a manager because these guys are pestering me on the phone, calling me at like 7 a.m. So I went to go see the manager and talk to them, and sure enough, 5 guys approached me in the hallway, surround me, and I had to defend myself. luckily it worked. I just went, prison rules, punch the leader and then swing at some other guys and get out of there. But then I realized I'm trapped in this city that's, probably about 400,000 people. And I'm probably one of 10 white guys and definitely the largest one. So it wouldn't be hard to find me. So next week I go, I get my manager at the time to look up karate dojos. Mm-hmm. He found one and I stumbled in there. And luckily it was actually a really renowned Japanese sensei, and his protege had just won the All Japan title. So it's basically like a world title because those guys usually win it every year. And so he beat the piss out of me for 2 years straight until finally I could fight back. And yeah.
Uh-huh. No, man. So that got you. Did you have the bug before that, like for martial arts or anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, through my whole life, I was really into I'm sure you were as well, wrestling and, the WWE, where we thought it was real and then it wasn't. And then, I grew up in a smaller town, didn't have the opportunities. And I did, I was a bouncer and stuff. I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, just enough to know how to do a triangle choke and stuff like that. And then, no, it was mostly when I moved there, jumped into the fire. So, yeah, one of my proudest moments was, so I lived on that island, Hokkaido, for roughly 3.5 years. And on my third year, I managed to win the state championship. So I was number one on that island. So that's what kind of spawned me to move closer to Tokyo and pursue my career there as a teacher, but also get into professional kickboxing.
Yeah. And is that when you started in K1?
Yeah, I started training for K1 again. And, it was a pretty big city, but about an hour away from Tokyo, a city called Mito. And I kind of looked around and stumbled into another gym, and it turned out it was kind of mildly run by the Yakuza as well, which is the Japanese mafia, but had a great, I guess they call it the gym master, Kancho. He was a good guy, and they got me into fighting for kickboxing. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. So then transition back once you retired, I guess. Is that when you transitioned back to?
Yeah, I mean, I did that for 3 years or so, and then I got more into mixed martial arts, trained with some pretty serious guys that actually fought in Pride FC, like you were mentioning. Yuta Sakurai, he's my sensei, and I continued to train there with those guys for another, roughly 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I also pursued my judo black belt, which I got as well. So managed to get a few black belts while I was out there.
Gnarly. No, man. And yeah, so the mindset, I guess, to like hang with for one, the Japanese mafia and hold your own, right? As one of the only, one of the only Caucasians kicking around, right? Like it's just the way it is, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It was definitely, being a big guy and, kind of doing the fighting martial arts stuff. That's similar to how it's ran here. Boxing is pretty much underground, run by, some serious guys, I believe, and there's lots of gambling and stuff. So they're always attracted to that and the professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to avoid, but the guys that I train with at a gym called Our Blood were separated from that, and they were more athletes. So it was good to train with them. But the hardest part for me was, stepping into a gym, being the only foreigner there, and being kind of bigger, and not knowing actually what to do at the beginning. And they don't hold back over there. It's, sparring here is nice and light. You tap each other. Over there, you're walking right into 80%, and they're just beating the shit out of you. So for you to actually go there and have that happen for the first few months and still manage to keep coming back, you know, and that happened every time I changed the gym. It was like, okay, we got to test this guy. So
Yeah.
it was quite the experience, a lot of bloody noses and black eyes. But another cool thing is like, because it's so much part of the culture there, as a teacher, like I was a junior high school teacher as well, even taught a little bit of elementary. Even though I was doing that stuff, they encouraged it. Like here, I don't think you could pursue being a teacher and a fighter at the same time. Maybe you could, but kind of a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
There, they encouraged it. You know, every school has a judo team, so I was coaching that as well. So it's kind of cool how they get behind you in that over there.
Yeah. Well, because it's not used for, you know, that's the perception, right? It's there. It's, yeah, you're learning to protect yourself and you're learning the martial art of, right? It centers you. Like there's a lot more to it, right? It's a spiritual thing. And it's gotten lost in translation a lot in Western culture.
Oh, yeah. All the Mick dojos in Canada.
Yeah. Right? No, absolutely. So no, and like training with dudes like Eric, right? He gets it. Like he really does. Like he wants to help you get better, but he's going to punch you in the face and you're going to feel it. Right. But I love it. Right. Like,
because I remember you decided to challenge yourself and you signed up to do a fight. Yeah. And I think that you went through with it, right? You did more of like a kumite style.
Oh, yeah. I battled three guys running around, beating the shit out of me for 3 or 2 minutes each, right? For 2 rounds. Yeah. Or 2 rounds apiece.
So, but I think, you know, training with Eric and you didn't hold back on you and you got hit, but you hit back. And then some of the other guys that weren't quite as good, it was easy to spar with them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's hard coming to Canada and then bringing that same mentality. It's called like the Bushido, like the way of the warrior.
Yep.
And, you know, we're all there. Like even in Japan, you know, you beat each other up, but after practice we go and eat and we laugh. And a lot of times, you know, they become your fan. You get closer to people once you punch each other in the face.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it's like,
dude, if more people got hit in the face and knew what that felt like, there'd be a lot less hate in the world. Like, and now it means so much, especially these days. But if you know what it's like to be hit in the face and get back up, it's going to make you more resilient and you're not going to want to hit someone in the frickin' face. Like you will find.
Exactly. I mean, for myself more than anything, I am more worried about me going in public and hurting someone. And, you know, that's why I avoid going to bars and putting myself in situations where you might be in danger. Whereas when you're oblivious to it, like when I was younger, you can't believe like going to the club every weekend. And, you know, it was a different time back then where people weren't getting shot and killed, but there was always a dust up at the end of the night.
Yep.
And, but, you know, why would I don't even know why I was attracted to that, because now I'm just old. And, you know, I learned a lot, but you'll notice, like I've trained with a lot of high level guys. I was in, you know, Albuquerque, New Mexico, training with Greg Jackson's camp back in 2009. And, you know, coming from Japan, their mindset, and I'm going to that gym and I'm thinking these guys are all going to try to kill me too. It wasn't like that. It was, you know, not that they didn't train like animals, but everybody there was so nice. You know, we had Keith Jardine, John Dotson, John Jones had just got there. It was his first week as well. I was living in a dorm with a bunch of new recruits, so it was pretty cool. But it turned out to be one of the most rewarding, you know, 2 weeks of my life, just to see that and train with that, you know, that amount of talent, and then to see how far they went after and still are.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And see how humble they are. And most MMA fighters aren't these guys that are, you know, going out there picking fights. Recently, actually, John Jones is in a video on Instagram I've seen, and he's out there ripping spray paint cans from protesters that are trying to vandalize downtown Albuquerque.
Yeah, very cool.
You know, he's trying to protect I think a lot of them did that. I think protect their neighborhoods, being these guys. So
yeah, I don't know if you saw Scott Mendelson, but yeah, that dude.
Yeah, he had a whole crew of guys.
A whole crew and some 12-gauge shotguns. Yeah, but protecting his shit, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah. I guess with the strength though, because that was all MMA. What made you shift from retirement, I guess, of professional fighting to strength?
Yeah. So when I moved back to Japan, from Japan, 2013 to Calgary, and I had all these years of experience as a teacher, as a martial artist, fighting at a high level, training with a lot of high level guys, coaches. A lot of training techniques that you can only learn from the best in the world, which is kind of cool. And then I thought, I want to do something that involves all those things. So I started off as an MMA coach at a gym here, and that took off pretty well, but it's not enough to pay the bills. Luckily, they asked me to become certified. I think it was under their insurance rules as a personal trainer, which I did through CanFit Pro, which I'm now a pro trainer. So passing on the torch, it's kind of a full 360.
Yep.
But I learned, the basics through that, and then I got a job training people at a pretty large gym in town, and that was pretty awesome. I cut my teeth basically at the beginning, but started off as holding a lot of pads and doing boxing stuff, and realizing I can't do that for 5 hours a day. It's gonna kill me. But it was a good hustle at the beginning. But at the same time, I had different goals for myself, and I realized, I've always wanted to do strongman or kind of powerlifting, try it out. And I've, been a big guy, over 300 pounds for a long time. So I, from another trainer kind of edged me on to follow a basic 5-3-1 program. And then from there it took off. And I was never really had an intention to compete. I just wanted to, be able to lift heavy and be that guy in the gym. But then I started looking at some of the records at the 100% raw and knowing I could beat them. So finally in 2017, I started competing at super heavyweight. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was very cool to see. And that was about the same time. Yeah. I started getting into that a little bit after you did. And, but it was awesome to watch, man. I never saw you going that way, just being, well, you're always big, right? And like I say, but, and then with the fighting background, I never put the 2 and 2 together of like how big you were and how fast you moved but it translates so good to strength, but I just didn't see that in you. Right. I don't know. It was weird, but it works great for you.
Yeah. Well, what you're finding nowadays, a lot of guys that were athletes are, certainly not at a high level where they've made millions, but a lot of guys that were good athletes are becoming good fighters, or guys that were good athletes are taking a hand in powerlifting now. And it's getting kind of scary what some of these guys can do. Good friend of mine, Darrell Pettis, he just pulled 800 pounds and he's 100% raw. And, he had a background in playing college basketball down in the States. So kind of, similar, if you have that athletic ability, which is good. But, there's still guys out there that are taking it to the next level, which is, I'm 40 now, 41 coming up. So I'm a master's lifter, but in 2019, I came in first. I don't know if I'll do it again, but yeah.
Yeah, but you've always had that competitive chip, obviously, right? So and that's the way I started myself. And this is where we get why shit's relevant, right? It's that mindset, right? We all have something in behind us that's driving us to do it. And you've taken that to the next level and built up your life around your values, right? You value strength, you value connection with those people that you want to serve. right? And it's super cool to see, like, because you're following your path, yeah, you're happy, right? You're doing what you want to do. And that's why you're excelling in those areas. From the outside looking in, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's totally what it looks like.
Yeah, I must say that I don't know if I was one of the original guys listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, but living out in Japan, and, you know, I couldn't really watch too much of their TV without going insane. You know, I'd listened to a lot of podcasts driving. So I started listening to him back in 2010, or maybe a little before that, I'm not sure. But he was always bringing in these guests that were, you know, really positive people. You know, follow your passion. Life is short, and why not do what you want to do, type of thing. So I realized, you know, that the career I was going to choose had to follow all those things. Yep. And I knew I was really passionate at teaching and coaching. And so for me, I get way more satisfaction helping people become the best version of themselves than, you know, making a big fat paycheck and being some corporate guy that has a nice house on a lake or something. That would be great. But when I have a whole group of people that, you know, are my client base that all look up to me and want to hear my opinion, and they look to me as their motivator, even through times like now, where we're all trapped and inside and going through this strange time in you know, the human race. For the present human race, I'm sure this has happened before, but never to this magnitude, where we've had the ability to connect with internet, and you know, it's a crazy time. But if you're not keeping positive and trying to motivate people, you know, it's a good time to actually go down in a downward spiral if you're not paying attention to your own mental state, right? So
yep. No, 1,000%, man. And it's just so cool. Like I just really love, just the people that you brought in. Like I keep bringing back to Eric, but that dude, like, he's connected to you because, you know, he sees you. He sees himself in you, right? And as crazy as he is, I don't know if you were ever that crazy when you were 20, early 20.
No, the thing with Eric is he started at zero. I mean, you've seen pictures of him.
Yeah.
He was fat. He was 260, and he was really into smoking weed and just doing, you know, basic life, you know, collecting pogie all winter. But now he's become like a really great person to be around. Not that he wasn't before, but he's very motivating for others, and he's kind of got his life together a bit more.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of mixed martial arts, is that it gives you something to strive towards and kind of channel that energy for a lot of guys that are a little lost, like I was as well.
Yep.
And I could focus on something and pursue it. And then it's something that you realize takes more than just a year or two. You know, if you're working towards a black belt or become a professional fighter, you know, you're looking at, you know, 5 to 10 years for those black belts. But, you know, it's a long journey. And I'm sure you know this as well with powerlifting. That's why, it's hard for you to draw those parallels. But for me, and probably now you doing both,
yep,
there's no shortcut with powerlifting either, right? You can't go out there and pull 600 pounds if you haven't started off for at least a couple years, unless you're some kind of genetic freak.
Yep.
You know, it takes time to do these things, and it hurts, and it's hard on your body, and sometimes you want to quit. It's like getting punched in the face. But if you stick with it, you're going to become stronger, both mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. You're going to get injured along the way. Those happen. But getting through that is giving you the most power you could have in terms of your life, because now you realize you're in control. And if you can defeat those things, and there's not much in front of you that you can't defeat. Yeah.
And there's a couple things there, right? It's putting in deposit, like just little baby steps along the way. We call them hitting singles, like every day, just hitting a single, not hitting that home run every day. Yeah. If you went out and pulled your max every day, it's not going to work out good. If you went and fought the best in the world in the cage every day, it's not going to work out. Like after 3 days, you're done, right? If you make it that far. It's just, so it's a daily deposit every day. And then the second is, man, if you look back into, I trained at an old school gym. Like, these were badass motherfuckers that seriously, but it's the community. So everyone pushed off each other. You don't have that in a lot of gyms now. It's just a bunch of egos where dudes are standing around, taking up a squat rack for 3 hours, trying to look pretty for Instagram, right? And you don't have your buddy pushing you, and that group, like 3, 4, 5 dudes standing around through a squat session, right?
Yeah, when your turn's up, you got to go. They're not waiting for you, and
yep.
And then, I do train with a good crew of powerlifters right now as well, the Generations strength team, and with Darrell and a bunch of the other guys. Coach John Giffen, he's a famous bench press record holder. And, kind of bring in that old school mentality, but also those days where you got to do, 400 plus pounds for sets of 10s, 6 sets of 10 or whatever. Doing that on your own is not fun, but if you can push through it with the team, it's definitely a big thing, right? Just like if I'm getting Eric ready for a fight, and, with his other coaches as well, they put him through these, just like you endured, having to fight a fresh guy every 3 minutes, and they're just going through you, making you hurt. And that type of, you need to do that to kind of get ready for when you do get into a cage, because even Eric's first fight, I was, unfortunately, I was in Mexico at the time. I couldn't be there, but he got called in very suddenly to do this. It was actually a tournament for the Canadian Championships, which he ended up winning last year. So it took him 3 or 4 years, but they put him against a guy that was, 12 fights in and is now a pro. They're actually good friends, and he's a great guy, Colton Cronkite from Lethbridge. But, he did quite well, and the guy finally submitted him, but I always talk to him, and he says, I've never met a guy as strong as Eric that could get out of this position that I held him in. And I train with guys. He even told me that he was training in Vegas and with some heavyweights, Francis Ngannou, who's going around almost killing people with punches, giant heavyweight, probably going to be the champ pretty quick. He couldn't get out of that position, but Eric just powered out and rolled over. He didn't really know what he was doing. And, hearing that gives him motivation to train harder and realize he's with those guys, and he can do that, and he can get there.
Yeah. Well, and it shows a lot with your training and conditioning too, that you put them through, right? Because you train them in the gym as well. Correct.
Yeah. I'm a strength coach.
Yeah.
Conditioning.
Yeah. So a lot of people like one-sided, right? And it comes back to, that's what we discuss in the podcast and in our program is being multifaceted, right? So we're really good at being a couple things, a lot of dudes, right?
Yeah.
So you're either really good at, you have a nice body, right? And you know how to make a lot of money, but your relationships are pretty shit, and your connection to yourself, you don't even know what the fuck that means. And we don't know, and everything falls out around you, right? But when you combine the strength, right? Combine the strength and then combine the training in the cage, you can create a champion, right? Oh, yeah. And isn't that cool? If you could create a champion in the ring that has a life at home and that is on fire, you're going to be a better champion in the ring, right? If everything else is aligned.
Oh, yeah, that plagues a lot of the great athletes is, when they have trouble outside of the cage, and maybe they can't deal with substance abuse, or they have problems with women, or having too many women around, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Being a star and stuff like that. But if you can build up someone, and that's why more of a traditional martial art, Japanese style martial arts, when you go to a class, the very beginning of the class, you're kneeling in front of your sensei, and he's telling you, we're going to do this today, but you have to kneel there. And most North Americans have a hard time doing that. 5 minutes while he's talking, and then you get up and you do all the traditional warm-ups first. And there's a spiritual side to it. And then, the hard class, and then usually the sparring at the end. And then at the end of the class, kneeling again, and bowing towards, the flag in Japan. And they're very patriarchal. And, it's a different world over there. So when you learn that kind of discipline and you see it firsthand, and then you try to pass that on when you come here, it's not everybody's cup of tea. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get amazingly rich by being this hard on guys, but I can honestly say that if I could have one Eric Aree, 5 to 10 years, I'd be happy, because he's definitely a guy that, took on everything I gave to him and kept on coming, and still, we're good friends. And he's killing it.
Yeah, and he's a perfect example too. I don't know him that well, but like his girlfriend that was there training with him, like going through that together, went on a trip with him, right? Like it was just cool to see that interaction between two people that were doing stuff that they love, right? And it doesn't matter if she didn't like doing that stuff, but it's a matter of finding that balance between the two, and that's where a lot of us fall short, right? But in that scenario, it was really cool to see that dynamic.
They're an awesome couple. I actually introduced them, so that's another thing that's cool if I can do that. Not that I'm trying to do that all the time, but I just knew that she had such good energy, and she always was training hard, and he he's had different relationships where they just sit on the couch and do nothing, but to match that energy. Yep. And I was just over at his house. I helped him actually build a home gym as well a few years back. He's got a really good setup. That's his basement. He has a crew come in every morning at 5 a.m. to train before they go to work. And, I went there in the evening. He works out in the evening with his girlfriend, Camilla, and they're there training, and, for 2 hours every day. And he's training in the morning for another hour. So he's got endless energy, but just to see him, have that passion, and they're both training hard.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I guess if, is there anything that we didn't talk about or that you wanted to touch on, I guess?
I just think, I did mention to you another experience I had in Japan was, going through something similar to what we're going through now. It was probably a little more real at the time for me, but it was, I was living about 100 kilometers from the Fukushima meltdown. So originally it was a 9.1 magnitude earthquake just off the coast, the east coast of Japan, where I was living. So I was actually in school at the time. I was a teacher, and I remember it was a Friday, and classes ended sooner than normal, but kids had to get together and do these small clubs that they're in. And I was making my rounds, just seeing everybody. And then one kid yells earthquake, and I couldn't feel it, so I thought he was just kidding, or it was going to be a small one. And then all of a sudden, this thing, like, you're used to them in Japan. They happen like almost daily. Just a little rattling of the table, or you feel something moving. It's very odd coming from Canada. But this one just took off, and then it never stopped calming down. It just blasted up like a crescendo all the way to, I was standing in the doorway. I thought that might be a good idea so it wouldn't collapse as easily. All the kids were under the tables that I was monitoring, and I looked outside out the window, and I could see the entire forest in the background swaying like it was like toy trees. And then I could see the tennis court. It was moving like a snake. The entire square tennis court, probably about 100 feet long, was moving. The ground was breaking outside. And I thought, this is it. Like, this is probably as close to being dying as I ever have. And, luckily it kind of died down slightly, and we were able to run outside. And the school was newer. It had just been built, so it was earthquake proofed. So we could get outside. And then you hear the phones ringing again, another aftershock hits. And, now tsunami warnings, tsunami, as you know, that was the worst part about it. Killed like 20,000 people. Luckily, I was about 20 kilometers from the ocean at that time, not too far away, but I had friends that lived in the town and students that I had taught that were, luckily it wasn't quite as bad as a little further north, like Fukushima and another couple of prefectures that got hit really bad where you saw those videos of entire towns getting wiped out. But the earthquake was definitely just as powerful, and there's no way to describe the aftershocks. Like you go through that one traumatic experience, and then there's one hitting you every half hour or so. Everything was closed down. There's bridges down and everything. I couldn't get a hold of my wife. She was my fiance at the time, and she was a school teacher as well. And so I was worried. She worked in an older school. And so, you go through something like that. Finally, we could get everybody together. A bunch of friends stayed at my house, but these aftershocks are going on over and over again. You're running out every hour or so because you didn't know if it was going to be another big one. So that was a crazy time because after that, of course, kind of similar to what happened with the toilet paper here, but not people, Japanese people are very peaceful, but stores were ransacked. Not, people bought the materials, but, people knew that, okay, we got to set up. Luckily, my wife's family owns a few stores and they had food. So we drove out that way, but just about an hour away, and just watching the damage that I saw on the way there. Couldn't go over some bridges because they were broken. And then it was like a apocalyptic time. And so going through that and just knowing that I can get through that and seeing, what could possibly be a near-death experience makes you a bit stronger. And so I think having that experience has kind of helped me through what's going on here, especially at the beginning when we all thought we were going to get this thing and
that was it.
We die, we're going to be in a ventilator and who knows, right?
Yeah.
But tough times, I always say that getting through tough times, it's important to remain calm and cool and collected. And I think we're doing that in Canada, not so much in the States right now. It's kind of getting scary down there, but seeing how the Japanese handled that, and then all of a sudden the nuclear meltdown that was going on. 100 kilometers away from me, I had plants built, the reactors blowing up on TV, and I knew it was going to come down my way. All the radiation was floating down, and so it was a crazy time. But we got through it, and we'll get through this as well. It's not going to be the end of the world, but it's going to be a tough time. So I think it's good. Canadians are uniting, and we're not, getting involved in looting and the protests going on right now.
Yeah. And it's definitely a lot. And that's where we go in a lot of this is the pain, right? Like the shit that's trauma, or shitty things that happen, it's having that support system behind you that we concentrate on here in the Men of Iron and such. Like a lot of dudes don't have that, right? Like they try to take a, I almost died on a job a few years ago. There was something that went sideways, right? And I never dealt with it. I never even really talked to anybody about it. And it wasn't good. Like I see the after effects now of that stuff. But now, we do weekly check-ins every week with a group of people, just like on Zoom, just like on this, right? Talking about what worked during the week, what didn't work during the week, and that's huge of just dudes, just talking just like this, but like getting shit off their chest, right? And having the tools to be able to work through that. Yeah. So you don't have a nuclear fucking meltdown. That's, right?
Yeah, personal nuclear meltdown where you implode inside. And having that community and people to connect with is definitely important. And then, like you said, the mentality and building that, what I do and what you do is helping to build that strength, physical, mental. So when there are times that come like this, I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we go through a period of time like this. I mean, if you look at our grandparents, era, they went through the war.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that was infinitely worse,
right?
Going through that
In comparison, yeah, right.
Yeah. So it right now our relevance and we don't have a close connection with that. So this is the realest it's gotten for us in a long time. But having that mentality and community is very important. So if you haven't started, you got to start trying to build that and find that, reach out to people, because that's what's going to help you get through these times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's back to the daily deposits, right? It's just building that foundation so that when something does come to rocket, then you're able to withstand it. So
nice.
Yeah. Is there any closing thoughts that you would like to have?
Not too. I don't have anything I haven't really said to you, but I just like to say that, it's kind of crazy how our, lives connect in certain ways. When I met you out in Maui, we didn't know each other. And I'd have to say at that point, you'd hit weights, but you weren't into it too much. And then I'd like to take a little credit. I kind of lit a fire under your ass, got you back in the gym a little bit, right? And from there, you went on to, do a bodybuilding competition, powerlifting. And it was cool how, just crossing paths, you can influence someone like that. And now we're on a podcast together, helping me trying to build my own podcast. And it having this kind of synchronicity is pretty awesome. And to actually think that lives don't cross for a reason is ridiculous, because they do. So take moments like that when you meet someone new and take them in. And that's pretty powerful.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so good. And I think we'll be doing stuff like this for quite a while now. And I look forward to getting punched in the face again by Eric or maybe yourself. It's I'm just trying all sorts of different things now. Like I started CrossFit with my daughter here the last.
Nice.
Right. So I don't care what it is right now. I just want to push forward, and whatever it is, we're just going to try new shit. So
yeah, I mean, I weigh 350 pounds, and I'm climbing up a pretty good hill every day. Nose Hill in Calgary, something I would dread doing, but now I can do it. I'm grabbing a bike now. I'm going to focus more on some cardio. Like, you got to get out of your comfort zone. And one thing you got to realize through this whole pandemic is your immunity is the most important thing. People are always going to get sick, and there's always going to be a disease going around. What can you do to prevent that? The number one killer, I also teach CPR, is cardiovascular disease. And that kills, roughly 15 million people worldwide every year. And, no one ever thinks about that as some sort of pandemic, but it is. And the cure for it, the vaccine for it, is working out, staying in shape, eating right. Let's focus on that. So when we do have something like a virus come along, we're able to defeat it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And where could anybody find you, Russell?
On Instagram, I'm at the.canadian.grizzly. And then the best way to get a hold of me is kind of just funnel it all into my website, where you can contact me, is www.mutekistrong.com. So that's www.mutekistrong.com. And get a hold of me there if you need to. And I also have a YouTube channel I'm starting to grow. I'm doing some workout videos on there and some technique stuff. So stay tuned.
Yeah, very cool, man. No, look forward to seeing it. And keep crushing it and putting out champions.
Yeah, man. Hopefully you're one day.
Love it. Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, we'll sign off with that. And till next time.
All right. Peace. See you later, Nick.
Thank you for listening to today's Tale from the Trench. Be sure to subscribe to The Awakened Tradesman on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram and message us for a customized coaching strategy call to successfully live your oil-filled lifestyle. You can earn a fulfilled life. Check back next week to continue listening.